Welcome to Gosimcha, the podcast that takes you on an in-depth approach to the Jewish music, entertainment, and simcha world. Now, here's your host, Zisha Littman. The following episode of Gosimcha, the podcast, is proudly sponsored by Keren Simcha's Chassan V'Kala. Keren Simcha's Chassan V'Kala was founded over 25 years ago and is based in Brooklyn, New York. KSCVK helps widows, orphans, and people who are in dire need of marrying off a child. Working through their network of vendors, KSCVK ensures that every wedding is just as special as the next. Run by world-renowned party planner Devorah Benjamin, KSCVK takes care that each wedding is as elegant as the next one, ensuring dignity and class through every wedding that they put on. To donate to KSCVK, please visit their website, kscvk.org, today. That's kscvk.org, and help make someone's wedding special. Hey everybody, welcome back. This is really exciting. We're now up to season 2 of Gosimcha, the podcast, kicking off episode 1. We have a very, very special guest with us, joining us on the show. This season, we're going to be sitting down with a lot of very cool, very interesting Jewish musicians and singers, both new and old, to hear their stories, to get to know them a little bit better, and to give you a better perspective on the Jewish music world from yesteryear. So as we kick off season 2 with episode 1, I'd love to welcome the famous Shlomo Simcha to Gosimcha, the podcast, to share his story and his journey through the Jewish music world. So Shlomo, welcome aboard. Pleasure to have you. How are you?
Hi, Shalom Aleichem. It's great to be here. My mother always used to tell me that when it goes Simcha, it's part of my name, so it's great to be on Gosimcha.
Amazing.
And we're very excited to be here.
Amazing. So how did it all begin with you? I mean, you've been in the game for a long time. You have countless albums out there, both of yourself and collaborations with other artists. But you've been in the game for a very, very long time. And you're Canadian. You're not from the States. You're from Toronto.
I'm actually British. I was born in England. I was born in Manchester, grew up in London, and I only came to Canada after I got married. I went to Kollel in Montreal. And then I got a chazanus position in a shul. I was 5 years in Montreal, and I've been 25 years in Toronto.
Well, that's fun.
And my first album is about 26 years now.
Wow.
It's about 26 years since my first recording.
I mean, now that you mentioned that you're British, and I definitely hear the Mancunian accent coming out from you. When I originally spoke to you, I never would have guessed you were British. That's pretty cool.
Just a little bit left there.
Well, but it's funny because with English, depending on where you've been. I have a friend of mine who lives across the street from me. Him and his wife are both English. He's from Leeds. His wife grew up here in Israel, and you would never guess that she was English, except when she gets mad at the kids. The British comes out.
Usually when I go home to visit, if I go to visit if I'm in England with family, when I get back the first few days, people who've known me a long time suddenly detect, a little bit of an accent. It comes on a little stronger. That's
funny. Listen, Toronto's close enough to England. You know what I'm saying? All run by the same queen. But that's pretty cool. So, how did you get involved? So you said you were I know you were in chazanus because I've heard some of your tracks and they're absolutely amazing. But how did this all start for you? How did this Jewish music journey start for you? Because you're coming from a different world than a lot of these guys nowadays who are getting into it, and it seems a bit easier with all the electronics and all the different things.
Yeah. So the Jewish the music started for me. I mean, as a kid, I loved music. I'm one of 13 kids, and we all sang. Everybody sang, and it was I just thought that's what goes on in every house. And I remember whenever I knew there was a concert in town or anything, I used to beg my mother to take me. And it was very hard to have a trip one-on-one, when you're one of 13. But my mother made the effort. She used to take me. I remember going to a free concert. I was probably about 11 years old maybe. And, I remember telling my mother, one day I'm going to be up there. I always had this passion to express, to express music, to be able to get up there and express singing and bring something to the world. And I ended up getting a stellar in Montreal. I was there for 5 years. And somebody had asked me, I got up at a chasana to sing just a few songs that one of the shul members, and the band leader heard me and he said, listen, I do albums for the Satmar community. It's generally music only, but they allow me to put vocals on if it's just without words. And the idea of these albums is that they shouldn't listen to what's going on in the mainstream. So he puts out 4 or 5 times a year, very low budget albums that just, it was doing MIDI. MIDI was like the new thing then. Mm. And he asked me if I would come into the studio and just sing a little bit of it. It was actually a Purim. He was doing a Purim medley. I sang a Purim medley on there with the seasonal tapes. Mm. And it was a cassette. And 2 years later, Mendy Werdiger, who runs Aderet, was in a store in Williamsburg, and he heard this cassette playing right on that 3-minute clip that I had on that seasonal album. And he bought the cassette and took it to Shia Mendelowitz. He said, listen to this. And the next thing I knew, I got a call from Mendy Werdiger. He said, when are you going to be in New York next? I said, I happen to have a chasna next week. He said, would you come in? I came in. And Shia was sitting in his office, and they signed me up to do a few albums and everything. And then it just kind of, it's a tremendous bracha, because I never knew how I was going to get into it. In fact, I had sent Shia demos and never heard back. And once I got to know him, he showed me under his desk, there were hundreds of cassettes. He said they come daily in the mail. It's impossible. I can't even, I don't have the time to listen to them. He says, you're probably in there somewhere. So it was just it's an impossible task. He wasn't, he was trying to run a current business with who he had. It's impossible to start screening and doing, especially with the material that we had then. And also on a cassette back then, people recorded. It wasn't very good quality. It was very hard to figure out. But Baruch Hashem, like within under a year, we had an album. I remember meeting Yossi Green. It was like an absolute dream. Yossi Green, greatest composer. Just like, I couldn't believe it. I was getting to meet all these people, and it was like absolutely miraculous. It was like L'mayla min hateva. And then my first concert was in Yad Eliyahu with Mordechai ben David and Streicher at the time. Wow. In Yad Eliyahu, 12,000 people. The first time I ever appeared publicly was 12,000 people, and it was before my album had even come out. So there was a lot of bracha that took me, that took me where I got, and in those days when a cassette, like CD, it was a big suffix whether we should make a CD because it was so expensive to make a CD. We had to see how the cassette sales would go to determine whether I would be could actually have a CD. There was just at the end where they stopped. They were still pressing LPs. It was just coming to the end of that. And they decided that they were going to go ahead with the CDs, and we made CDs. It was like a big deal. Things went from there. Baruch Hashem, singing in Hask, singing in other places, just mamish big siyata d'shmaya. I can't really take credit for any of that. It's just like just big siyata d'shmaya that was able to do it, because there are a lot of incredible, talented voices out there. Great Bali Regish that just the window doesn't open. It's very hard, and today it has other difficulties, because as much as everything's open, there's millions of sound bites going all the time, and to catch that window. When I came out with the first album, for like 8 months there was nothing else out there. So people would tell me, I remember summer camp, I remember driving here, I remember flying here, I remember getting through the winters. Nowadays, your window of highlighting something is, if you're lucky, you've got your 2 weeks, and then there's some other sensational thing out there that's got the spotlight. It's just, that's the reality of today.
Yeah.
Baruch Hashem. I have fans from the years, but if I had to start today, it would be very difficult.
Right. No, because because everyone's chasing the new big thing, the new shiny thing. And in our world especially, like something new comes on the market, everyone hops onto it. And you really got to be like holding yourself down and really anchoring yourself to continue that momentum that you got going on. It seems like you've been doing this for quite some time, for close to 3 decades, and you have a very
Baruch Hashem. And the secret is to stay true to who you are.
Yeah, 100%.
Don't try and change with what's going on. The reality is, when everybody settles down and the beat stops and the disco noise stops, and the kids sit down and they get serious about a kumzit, what are they singing? Everything they're singing is 25 years old.
Yep.
Pretty much. I'm not saying there's not. It's a good schoire. I'm not saying Matti Stein. That's there's still some gewaltige Geschmack in the Gunim that to me I believe are timeless. Vihi Noyam there's many of us in the Gunim that mamish I feel that have that quality of. But I'm saying Klalistik, a lot of them in the Gunim, within 6 months they're gone. I mean, to sing at chazanus, I have to learn songs that I know in 6 months nobody will even remember them.
Wow.
It's just something that we have to do.
Right. You still do weddings?
I still do weddings, yes. Yeah. Some people tell me, I can't believe you're still out there. So first of all, I'm 50 years old. Moshe Rabbeinu's career started at 80. And he, in the following 40 years, he made history that they're still talking about until today. I'm 30 years away from when Moshe started. So we're here. And Baruch Hashem, we've got chayas, we've got strength, and the Abie gave me a talent, and gave me an ability, and we're going to use it as long as the Abie gives us koach.
Absolutely amazing. Now, it's funny. I was listening to a bunch of your albums the past couple of days, and you have a very interesting sound. Like you do have that. A couple of those albums they're all chazanus and are all like very serious. And then you have a lot of different more upbeat, more horadic things, and more levidic things. But it still sounds it's very real. It's very raw, and it's quite nice. And very nice to the ears to listen to. I happen to be not just a host of a podcast talks about music. I happen to be a musician myself, so I know how to pick these things out. And I like when I hear good sound. And that's what I've noticed a lot with like the older albums, the more old school musicians and singers such as yourself, is that it's a different sound. It's a more real sound, more serious sound, as opposed to what you hear nowadays, with all the electronics and the synths and the electronic music itself. It's a totally different world.
So it does bring. Listen, it's made a lot of things. It's made life a lot easier.
Oh,
but
for sure.
The trick is to stay. You got to stay true to the basic. If you're a guitarist and you're playing guitar, just because there's an electric guitar, you get lazy and you don't learn the chords and you just allow it to auto correct itself. No, if you're a player, you're a player, and then the electronics will enhance what you're doing.
Right.
You need to really, the key thing is to really make sure to put it. We're working right now. I mentioned to you, I'm working on Aish 3 with the Abie Rotenberg.
Yep.
And Baruch Hashem, the first Aish is, the Aish 1, there's still like 5 hits on one album that are still being sung today, even though a lot of the kids don't even know. They don't even know. The design of Aish really was that we wanted to sell nigunim. We didn't want to sell ourselves. We wanted the nigunim to carry themselves. So specifically, there were duets and trios, and we had guest appearances, and we had we had like a choral group. The idea was that the nigunim, the nigunim should sell the album, and not that somebody was featuring a specific singer. And so it's a funny thing. Like I was at my brother's house. He tells me to ask my niece if she knows Habeit Mishamayim Ra'eh. And I said, do you know this song? Ha ha, because of course that's the Maccabees.
Oh.
It was on the first Aish.
Wow.
So it was like, this is my niece. She doesn't know that I sang that song, and that was something we put together. So I'm just saying that but the bottom line is it's stood the test of time. It's third generation singing those songs.
Right.
And the challenge now doing Aish 3, which we've been working on for 2 years, Baruch Hashem, we're at the finish line now, was to be able to take, at the same time as taking the technology of today and making a superior product in the technical sense, to really stay true to the to the original sound, and that the nigunim should be what sells over here. And it was quite a challenge. And Donnie Gross is a very interesting guy because he's a young fellow who has an appreciation for a lot of the for the new and the old.
Right.
And he really spent a lot of time listening to the fast songs on Aish, the slow songs on Aish, to get the whole feeling of everything, and really come up with incredible arrangements and that are both fresh and yet authentic, and they don't cloud the niggin. That the niggin should still be able to come through and carry itself.
Right. Well, that's
Donnie's
style.
It's been a very exciting project.
I mean, well, that's Donnie's style.
Yeah.
I mean, we had him on the show a couple weeks back, and we were talking about Kumsitz in the Rain. If you ever listen to any of those albums that he puts out, it's all real music the way it's supposed to be, and he has a very good ear for all that. And so I think that's.
I sung on the last three Kumsitz in the Rains. On the new one, I just did something together with Reeve. And they just get better and better. There's just the choral arrangements, there's no, because even as far as a cappella albums are going, he's not using beatbox, any of that. He's keeping it very,
pure,
just very, very authentic, pure. Yeah.
It hits you right where it's supposed to. And it gives you that feeling, and it gives you that, it hits you where it's supposed to hit you. And that's what I'm saying. That's what I noticed about a lot of your music as well. And I noticed this with a lot of the older albums out there, that they do the same thing. They're just, it's music the way it was supposed to be, because there was no shtick behind it. Meaning everyone was playing their instruments. There were studio musicians. Everyone was playing their instruments. Everyone was doing their thing and knowing their part, knowing their role. And it came together and culminated in one beautiful sound. And so that's why I like going back and listening to some of your older albums than even some of the newer albums, because you still see it's still, as you said, you have to be authentic and be true to yourself, and everything carries over. Even now it's 2019, you're still carrying over those same methods and that same sound that you did back 26 years ago when you started.
Thank you very much. Baruch Hashem, we were trying. It was an album, Lil Shishi. I came up with an album with Yossi Green about a little over a year ago. It's a compendium. Yossi did a series of Shades of Green.
Yeah.
Shades of Green one. So in the series of Shades of Green, we did something called Lil Shishi, and all the songs that everybody just felt, that's not groovy enough, and they just kind of left them from the previous ones. We kind of picked them up and put it together, and Donnie did an absolutely fantastic job. And again, we had our 2-week window where it was like falling off the shelves, and then another few albums came out, and something else came out, and then and it's a very interesting thing, because Baruch Hashem, it's still selling and moving. It just, as people discover it, they're like, whoa, how come I didn't hear about this? This is amazing. Really, really, also taking advantage of the modern technology, but staying true to the old style music. Donnie did a fantastic job.
Right. So what's it like teaming up with legends like Abie Rotenberg and MBD and all these big names? It's
been incredible. At the beginning, it's like, it's absolute awe. Obviously, when you're working together regularly, you got to get over that and just focus in. But it's never lost on me. I mean, Baruch Hashem, today, we have a close relationship. We're close family, friends, but it's never lost on me. I mean, he's absolutely incredible. And just the creativity process throughout this album has been incredible, because besides just the composing, we get into the studio, and Donnie did a very interesting thing, because he had us come in where he had MIDI arrangements. We haven't committed yet to the music, which allowed that if things develop in the studio, he can go with it and just rewrite it and feature what's going on. So, and that's why this album's taken so long, because we were able to add different things, different natures, or decide that a song needed another part, and a lot of fantastic things. I mean, just watching Abie work in the studio every so often, I'm like, wow, it's really, really incredible. The talent and the gift to be able to, just the difference between a note or two, even sometimes I'll have an idea and I'll throw it out and I'll say, yeah, that's good. But when he repeats it, the way he syncopates it, the way he puts it in, and the notes that he drops and the notes that he keeps it's not my idea anymore. It's a whole new thing. He has a tremendous gift. Just everything. And he's makbid on everything. Sometimes I go in to sing and Abie listens and says, nah. What are you doing? Go back. Why did you drop that note? He's very, he makes sure that it doesn't, that even if you do a shtick or you give a little pirush, that it shouldn't affect the, the body of the song or the feel of the song of how it should be.
Right.
And he's very dynamic. I mean, this album has material coming from so many different directions, so many different styles. It's really, it's the privilege and an honor to work with all these clever. I mean,
that's really cool.
Over the years.
That's really cool. But so how does it work? Meaning, I mean, like I know Donnie's over in New York, so you guys come stateside to go into the studio. How long do you stick around for?
So I do. I mean, I'm in New York often because of that's a big center for chazanas and things. There's often. I have 2 married children that live in New York, one in Flatbush, one in Queens, so I don't need much of an excuse to go out there. So I had a chazana Sunday night, for example, Sunday night after Lag Boimer last week. So I went in and stayed Sunday to Thursday. I stayed at my daughter's, which is like a block and a half from Donnie's, and did the chazana Sunday night, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we worked. I stayed the week. It was crunch time. Other time, like earlier on in the project, I'll just stay an extra day, just stay the day after.
Right.
Or come the day before and just back with jobs. It's not so terrible.
No, not at all. That's pretty cool. Yeah, it's quite convenient. Canada's just like right over the fence there.
And Donnie's come down. Like in the planning stages, Donnie came here a few times, and he set me up a little studio in my house also. So we were doing. This is already for El Shishi. That when we were just doing demos and putting things together to see how it sounds, instead of me having to come in, I could do it at home.
Right.
Send me some tracks to do it at home and bounce it over to him. So
nice.
Which is also something you couldn't do years ago.
What a world! What an age of technology we live in. It's very interesting that you ended up in Toronto. You're based in Toronto. Toronto has a very rich history when it comes to Jewish music. It has a lot of it's fascinating.
Shlomo Carlebach, Abie Rotenberg, Moshe Yes. Mm-hmm. Ding used to live here. He in the early days.
Yeah, Toronto.
Career. So
it's very cool. Like you wouldn't think that Toronto would have like such a rich history of Jewish music and musicians, but it's pretty cool.
I don't know what the fact is about. Rachmiel Bigon was here. The Miami choir came out of Toronto Pirche. That all started here. He worked in Toronto Pirche.
Yep.
It's an interesting how Toronto's had that link.
Yeah, well, listen, Canadians are nice and friendly. What can you say? It's interesting.
Before 9/11, I wouldn't even tell my kids I was going. I would leave in the afternoon, go to do a chasana, and by 8 in the morning, I was already here to do carpool.
Wow.
Now it's not so. Literally, I'd go to the airport 45 minutes before the flight and land, and would be out without all the crazy security. Nowadays, it's not so doable.
Wow, that's crazy. It's funny. You have an album called "Made in Canada." What was that all about?
Yes. That was when Chazan Motz and Yaakov Motz was here in town, living here. We worked in the same shul. I davened 3 Shabbos and he davened 1. And we had 1 week that was much more operatic and with a choir and everything. And I did more the Balfila, more the Shira B'Tzibor. It was a big shul, 1,200 families, and this was it was a good combination. A few times a year we would daven together, and so Yaakov was here, and we had Abie here, and I was here, and we were doing a lot of choir work over here. So Ding decided that he'd come out here and do an album called "Made in Canada" and just take all the guys that are associated with the industry that are living here and do an album together. So it was like, yeah, why not?
Why not, eh?
He came over here to work. I mean, to work on our own turf. It was very nice. It made life easier. In fact, with Abie, the way things started was, I met him when I moved to town, and he said, we're always running to New York to do projects. Wouldn't it be nice if we just did a project together over here, and we wouldn't have to run in the whole time? I was like, yeah, that sounds like an idea. So we started getting together. He said, okay, you'll come over to my house, and we'll start working on Nigunim. And there's no pressure. When we have all the Nigunim, eventually we'll send it to Yisrael Lamb. All right, the arrangements will come down in no rush, and when it's finished, so we'll put it out. No pressure. And that's exactly what we did. We started getting together once a week, and going through material, and it was just incredible how it all came together. But it was all done in Canada.
That's so funny. It's a very Canadian mentality. It's a very Canadian mindset. No pressure, no worries, whatever. Like what happens, happens. I'm quite familiar with Toronto. I used to go to Camp Pagoda for a number of years. So I used to,
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, I'm from Detroit originally. So we used to drive up from Detroit to go to Port Carling and come to camp.
Port Carling, sure.
So I'm familiar with the Canadian mentality. Yeah, sure, whatever. It's all good, what happens, happens.
Yeah.
I feel like you might have came to the camp and did a concert. I mean, I know they used to bring.
I did over the years. I came many times.
Because I feel like I remember
many times. They weren't in the earlier years. They weren't very big on doing concerts, but once in a while, I used to. Right. I used to go. Now it's already more common. They do it more often now. Well, I did come a few times there.
Yeah, I was there from grade 6 to grade 9, and I'm fairly certain I remember you coming and doing a show. But I mean, it could
be very, very possible.
Yeah, good times.
Very possible.
So
wow.
But you have like so many albums out there. You have like Kenai Nahura, you've produced a number of different albums over the years. What would you say your favorite one was that you produced, and what was your favorite one that you sang on that you like in general? Like, what was your favorite?
I think the favorite one that I produced was probably Aneni.
Why?
It was the first album that I produced on my own. I worked very closely with my brother Shmuley. We co-produced it. He helped me tremendously, and working with family is always nice. And it definitely gave me a chance for creative expression in a different way than just singing. It was just a great experience, and I was very happy with the results. And the album did extremely well, Baruch Hashem, and it was just a tremendous feeling of accomplishment. That particular album. I had a lot more, but again, at the end of the day, I shied away a little bit more from production because it's very difficult to wear all the hats.
Right.
If you're performing and you're busy with production, it gets. Yes, you could do it. You could do a high-end wedding with strings and whatever, and you organize it. You can manage, but when once it becomes very difficult. Even your relationship with people. If you're a producer and you're a singer, it's very different. People expect from a singer this happy, upbeat, everything is relaxed, everything's fine, it's inspirational. If you're the same guy that has to negotiate and say, where the heck is this and what is that and why didn't this happen and we can't do that and it's late and we got to move it. It's very difficult to be the director and be the person that that's supposed to bring the feel good. So it's hard. There are a lot of circumstances where it's hard to wear both hats, but it was a nice experience. And then going back after that, it also gave me a tremendous appreciation for what the producers are going through, what the directors are going through, and you were able to really have a better understanding, appreciation, and a better respect. It lent it just lent itself. The experience allowed me to have a better relationship with the producers. Having a better idea of what they're doing and having a better appreciation of what they do. But that particular album I enjoyed very much.
Nice. Very cool.
In terms of singing, it's very hard to say a favorite because it's just so, I sang Machnise Rachamim very early. The year Chaim Bennett wrote this song and was singing it with his choir. It was literally the last song we picked on the first album. It was that late in the game, and the first time I heard that niggin, it was just I couldn't wait to sing it. And I remember Yaron Gershovsky played it on the piano, and the only other instrument we added to that was a sax. It was just piano and sax. There was nothing else on there, and that was a song that literally went down in one take. I was so blown away by that niggin, and it's been redone many times. It was funny over the years. I would say that had a big part in making my career. The Machnise Rachamim also helped to sell a lot. The first album kept every year. Elul, the first album kept selling because people wanted Machnise Rachamim. And then, as I know in Eretz Yisrael, people knew it more from Chaim Bennett, but certainly in America, it made a very big relation. And then, as the years go on, people would come over to me at chazanus and say, "Can you sing Machnitzei Rachamim? You know the one from Abie Rotenberg?" I'd say, "Yeah, sure, no problem. We can do that. We can do. You know it? Yeah, I know it." But the fact that the nigun is still around and still sung from Koimcha, still everywhere, and I have an opportunity to teach it and present it to many people, it's a big schus. It's a big schus.
Oh, for sure. And I think it's amazing that, like, your nigunim that you sang back many years ago are still around today. Granted, maybe people don't necessarily know who's behind them, but the fact that they're still being passed down and sung throughout the generations is something that's really amazing and that will never change. And that's really the power of music right there, is that no matter what, right, no matter what the sound is, no matter what's going on, you're still going to have that bass. You're still going to have that those core nigunim that'll never change. And it was funny. I was actually talking about this with a friend of mine today who's a singer, and he said nowadays, unfortunately, most people are very tone deaf, and they don't really know what sounds good. So they think that everything generally sounds good, but there's not. But to find real talents and to find real music nowadays, even in the Jewish world, it's very hard. And so that's why I was saying it's really cool that these nigunim are still going strong throughout the generations.
It is, and there is a ton out there, and I think that as the dust settles, as the different fads and cycles pass, the authentic music always ends up surfacing, always ends up being there, and being the there's a certain way of how a Yiddish nigun should be, and it's been that way for hundreds of years, and I think that's. Of course, there's always going to be an influence from the outside. I mean, if you listen to Sephardic music and you listen to Oriental music, there is a similarity. There's no question about it that the culture that we live in has an effect on some level,
right.
Of how the expression is. But the makor, as long as the makor is coming from a coming from the right place, and it's driven by melody. I think when a nigun, it's very hard to define. When people say, define what would you call a Yiddish nigun? I'm not a maven. I know what moves me and what doesn't move me, and it's a very hard thing. How do you draw that line? What's the definition?
Right. No, for sure.
But I have, if you look in the Sfarim, there is a definition actually, really, that if the song is driven by melody, generally it's not makabel tumah, and if it's driven by rhythm, in other words, that it doesn't matter what the melody is, that the main strength of the song is just the drive of the beat, then that's a different story. That's not the definition. So really, and really, that's really what a lot of what's going on today, where the melody is irrelevant. It's just about the drive. As soon as the melody becomes relevant, you're dealing with a different story.
That's so interesting. I never heard that shot before. That's very interesting, and it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense, because the beat, when people just want to hear that beat, they want to hear that pumping melody, that pumping beat, and all that noise. It really blocks what's most important is the melody and the flow and how the melody is really what penetrates in the neshama and really what gets into you. Wow, that's really interesting.
There was a book written, which I'm not going to quote because I don't like everything about that book. But there was one thing in there that I did like. There was a sefer written to define the difference in music, but the motives were wrong. It was coming from a kanois that I think was not, the motive was not to bring people closer to Hashem and to bring people closer to each other. It was more of a kanois thing. But there was one thing in there that really impressed me, and that was they did a test in a greenhouse, where they played classical music and they grew flowers. And the plants, different plants and flowers, and over a 3-month period, the plants actually not only did well, but the heads of the flowers were facing the speakers. And then they took the same greenhouse and they planted the same plants and they played rock and roll. And the flowers did not do well at all. A lot withered and died, and the ones that did survive were very weak. and the heads of the flowers were facing away from the speakers. This is scientific.
Wow.
This is just a fact. And the argument was, if that's the effect on a tzameach, imagine the effect on a chai. We know from the Ketores that you're supposed to talk because the koil yofel upsamim, that there is an effect of sound on plants. We know that from the Torah. It's not a foreign concept. And that impressed me. What impressed me is that they didn't do the test with Jewish music. They did it with classical and rock and roll. So it really just proved that point that, when Chazal say that music is not makabel tumah, yeah, you can have classical music. You can be misoira.
Right.
But again, music is a hechsher. It's not the actual. It's a regez that you need to give it the hand and feet, because emotion without direction is dangerous. That's a car without a driver. You gotta steer it.
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah,
that's really deep there. And it makes a lot of sense. Listen, it makes a lot of sense. And you see, again, back to your music. It's been going on now for you've been still going close to 3 decades now. And some of the newer stuff that's coming on the market, it's here one day, gone the next, because it's driven by the beat, it's driven by the sound, and not by the melody, and not by its main koach. That's really cool. So who out of all the people you've worked with over the years, out of all the people you performed with over the years, who's been your favorite person? I know it's a tough question.
It is a very tough question. It's a very tough question because there's listen. First of all, when it comes to inspiration, it's like if you're buying people always say, who's your favorite artist? What's your favorite album?
Right.
When you're buying a dining room set, you're buying one and you're going to use it for 30 years. When you're buying music, I could listen to 20 singers in a week and enjoy them all in a different way. I get tremendous inspiration from Motche, and he's a pleasure to work with, and he's a warme Yid and a heilige Yid, and I like the fact that he brings the whole Yiddishkeit and his whole avoid that comes into his music, which is incredible. Avram Fried, way before I ever met him, as a teenager when I was struggling, I got tremendous ruchnis gechayes from his music, and it was a tremendous thing to be able to perform with him later on in life. Abie brings tremendous. Robert Chait, the purity of the kids' choirs that are out there. There's ain't a dollar safe. The Kleine Hara, there's so much amazing talent and hergish and amazing things that have been done, and singing for choilim and raising money and hask. And it's just. I have a group in Toronto. We have the Simcha Squad, where it's a WhatsApp chat where every day, there's a chayla, who's available, and it takes a lot of amateur players that don't often get the chance to play it. They haven't had time to advance their music career to do it professionally. They come after work with a guitar, with a bongo, with a keyboard, with a saxophone or a trumpet, and we go and misamech people. And I love those gigs. There's something incredible about them. Making something useful out of it, and a lot of people got to actually grow and get great experience by doing this. So it's not an area where you could really have a favorite. There's just a lot of tremendous talent. You were talking about old and new. I'm going to England in a few weeks in Hashem. I'm doing a dinner for Boine Oilam, actually doing a dinner, and they're putting together a fantastic musical program, as opposed to just come up there and give us half an hour of. They're doing something really, really special, and they're creating something very special. I don't really want to give it away beforehand.
Okay.
But the Yaron Gashofsky is going to be there, and he's writing special arrangements for the event, and they're doing something really amazing. And it's like 10 times the work that I would usually have to do to go to a dinner, but I'm absolutely excited and loving it. And Yaron is a guy that, that's been around. He played on my first album. He's still around. Even in his career with the Manhattan Transfer, he's been with the Manhattan Transfer for 40 years, and they still sell out performances all over the world and have won all sorts of awards. So I love there's a guy that, has been around for 40 years, and there's something incredible about his playing and about his arranging, and And, and also he brings a lot of his, history from his home, from his parents, from where he originally comes from, comes into the music. I love the way his neshama comes out into the music. So it's very exciting to be, to be working together with him to put something special together. And the Nagunim that we're doing there is a mix of old and new. It's really a tremendous mix of old and new.
That's really incredible. That's really, really incredible. And I see, that's the best part about it is if you enjoy what you're doing and you get that geschmack from what you're doing, you enjoy going out there and putting on these concerts and creating these albums and giving people real chizuk through your music and giving people like that and people can really connect with you through your music, then you're doing your job right. I think that's absolutely incredible, and you should continue to have so much hatzlacha and bracha from this and nachas from everybody listening to you. Well, Shlomo, it was seriously a real pleasure to have you on my show. I'm happy we got to kick off season 2 with a legend. And it's great to have people like you doing what you're doing, to give people insights and be able to really take in this fast-paced world, to be able to take a second and review and internalize and try and process what's going on. 100%. I mean, this is why people like our show. I mean, in the previous season, we had over 40 episodes, and we have a very large fan base of people who love to listen to our show because, I like talking with you guys to really get a better understanding of what goes on in the Jewish music world, because at the end of the day, you guys are people too. You have lives, and you're not just people who go out there and perform on stage. You have lives and you have stories, and what got you to where you are and how you became the people you are is all tremendous siyat d'shmaya. The Aish has helped you so much. And you just really have a lot of the musicians we've had on the show that you guys really have some interesting stories. And I'm happy I'm able to use this medium as a way to show it off to people and give them better insight to you.
Thank you very much for what you do. And we should all be inspired. The Torah is coming to Mountain Torah right now. It's Shira. The Torah is called Shira.
Yep.
The Torah is called Shira. Shir is actually a song that it comes from the Gemara in Shabbos that talks about a shear. You can't take the behemoth out with a shear, which is a round collar. And something round, there's no beginning and no end. It goes and goes and goes. A good niggin, you just keep singing. It doesn't start, it doesn't finish. It just goes over and over again. That's the Torah. There's no start or finish. You just keep, you gotta keep going in it. So it's all connected.
That's right. So, Be'ezrat Hashem, we're coming up to Shavuos, and I wish you a wonderful, wonderful Yom Tov. Much hatzlacha on your upcoming album with Aish 3. It's incredible what you're doing. And we should only hear good things from you, from Abie, from the whole chevra out in Toronto. And you can only see tremendous hatzlacha. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Amen. Thank you very, very much.
Sure. You've just listened to another wonderful episode of Gosimcha the podcast. For more news, updates, and information on our next episode, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram at Gosimcha Live, and don't forget to check out the show notes and videos on www.gosimcha.com along with zeradio.com. Thanks for listening, and remember, Go Simcha!